Hi, today I'm talking to Alex, and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Cool. Hey, I'm Alex von Schulmann. I graduated from mechanical engineering at UBC, mechatronics option in 2019. Since then, I've been working at Robotics, a robotics automated storage retrieval solution company in Calgary. So, yeah, I guess that's a good quick intro.
Yeah, cool. So, what would you say you kind of work on then? Obviously, it's kind of mechatronics focused, I'm guessing, but what would you say the type of projects you work on are and what you do in them?
Cool. Yeah. So, I guess since starting, I've been on, I guess the way the company's broken up, there's different areas within the engineering group. So I'm in the like robot development team. So I work on the like design and development of our robots. There's also like a structure team that designs the structure that the robots drive around in. There's also like test engineering teams, manufacturing engineering, and kind of everywhere in between. But yeah, my main focus is on the like mechanical design for our robots.
Could you go a little bit more into depth of like what the mechanical design is? Because I feel like a lot of students don't really know exactly what that would be.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of depends like which stage of a project you're getting into, but like for me, I was pretty lucky. Like when I joined, we were kind of just in the conceptualization phase of a like a new next generation robot. So kind of at the beginning, you're doing kind of like the full design cycle. So you're taking in like requirements from various stakeholders, kind of putting together like documentation for like what you actually want your product to be. Then from there, it's like a lot of brainstorming, like rough CAD design, kind of laying out the different like packaging of where you think different components are going to need to go. Especially in like mechatronics products, it's kind of really important thing to do because like especially with like when you integrate with different teams, like you need to give the electrical engineering team like space to work with for designing their PCBs. You need to think about cabling and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff needs to get kind of like roughed in and conceptualized, and then from there, it's like you kind of just keep iterating and developing like more detailed CAD, going through calculations and like tolerance stack ups. And then eventually you get into like prototyping, and then looking more towards like design for manufacturing, like how you're going to mass produce things. But it kind of goes like back and forth between being really hands-on in CAD and really hands-on in putting things together, seeing how it works, and like building, testing stuff.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like you get experience throughout the entire process, going from design to stakeholder consultation to manufacturing and that whole process. What would you say an average day looks like then? Maybe I know there's probably a lot of different days for different stages, but I don't know, maybe pick one and then could you elaborate on what that would look like for you?
Sure. Yeah. I guess for me, like, I guess like the most, like, yeah, as you're saying, like, it does definitely depend on like what stage of the project you're in. I think like the most lengthy periods of time for the project are probably like in the like detailed design kind of stage of things. So that would be, yeah, like maybe in the morning you're like going through doing some calculations, like trying to figure out how to optimize some part, or then jumping back and forth between like Excel, textbooks, CAD, kind of just trying to figure out how things are going to look. Um, Probably a few meetings sprinkled in, like where you're consulting with other groups, trying to negotiate how much space they're going to give you, you're going to give them, that kind of thing. Um, that's like, I guess, a pretty typical day. But yeah, as you're saying, it totally depends. Like there might be meetings with external suppliers, like people who are making your injection molded parts or your cast design parts or anything. Um, yeah, or you could be completely different. It could be like a day full of testing stuff. But yeah,
Okay, cool. So then if that's what an average day looks like, is there any days that kind of stand out to you as highlight days or really good days?
I think some of my favorite days are have been days where like everything kind of comes together and you get to actually see the product come to life. So like the first time like we put together a new product and like launched it and like had it driving around in our structure for the first time, that was like super cool. It's always nice to like see what you've been working on come to life. So yeah, it's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah.
If those are the really good days, then what do you think a bad day would look like for you personally?
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a trickier one to answer because like I feel like bad days like often like sneak up on you. I feel like there's not like any necessarily like common thread to them. It's just kind of like sometimes like you're just like stressed because of deadlines and stuff just keeps piling up, and those days are like definitely harder. But I feel like also like you get better at dealing with them and like learning to like work your way through them and kind of compartmentalize things and get organized. So
Yeah, that's kind of one thing I've heard from a lot of the engineers I've talked to. It's that a bad day usually isn't engineering related. It's usually deadline focused or just problems coming up, and it's not really the engineering that's the problem. It's extremities coming into it. Through
yeah,
choosing
because like I
oh yeah.
guess oh sorry yeah I was just gonna say like I guess like in engineering like not everything's gonna work all the time, right? Like you expect things to break and have to fix things and kind of solve problems. So it's when that stuff goes wrong, it's yeah sometimes it sucks, but it's like kind of expected to. So yeah, it's definitely like the other stuff that is trickier.
Okay, cool. So then what would you say by choosing mechanical engineering and mechatronics as your career path? What do you think the pros and cons are of that choice?
I guess for me, like what I really like I'm like super into like all the kind of as I've kind of been talking about, I guess like all the like product design kind of stuff. I feel like mechanical engineering, you can have like a really broad set of opportunities for that, like whether it be like different industries or different like types of products. Um, because like I do, as I mentioned, it's like my like favorite day. It's yeah, like seeing stuff you've been working on like come to life and like physically in front of you. Like that's super rewarding to me. So that's what I like about it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm sure that's a big reason why people go into mechatronics and mechanical engineering is to build things that are really cool to them, and just seeing it come together is a really good feeling. What would you advise to
Yeah.
students who are considering going into mechanical engineering or mechatronics more specifically to kind of consider before they actually commit to it? Like maybe some advice or something they should do before they make that big leap.
Yeah, I guess I know like I feel like when I was considering it, like a lot of people were kind of worried that you have to be like super into like automotive and stuff like that to like be successful in mechanical engineering, but it is like way more broad than just that. Like if you're into that, that's super cool and there's definitely like tons of jobs in that area. But it's so broad that like I feel like anything that's like hands-on building stuff or like playing around with like physical assemblies, like it's definitely a good spot for that. I guess like one thing that I found useful, like being in the industry now, like that we like when I was in university, at least like we didn't go over a ton of was like learning how to do like proper tolerance stack ups and like analysis. Like it's something that's super useful for any kind of like product design as you go into like higher volume stuff, but it's not something that gets covered in super big depth in university, I feel.
Okay, cool. Just a quick question. Were you on any design teams in university?
Yeah, I was on the UBC Sailbot design team.
Would you say that was kind of a good idea of what mechanical engineering would kind of be like, or do you think there's kind of a difference between the two? Obviously, business and money is related and it's a little bit more complicated, but for engineering, the process of engineering, would you say it's somewhat similar or no?
I think it was, yeah, I think it was like a good intro to that kind of stuff. I think it does like, it is definitely different, but it's still quite representative. I also think that like some of the projects that we went through, like throughout the years, like various like capstone design projects, or just like even like the second year projects for mechanical engineering, like they're also like pretty good, just like intros into how like the like product design process works. Like it's still the same kind of thing. Like you're taking in your stakeholder feedback, kind of like brainstorming, prototyping, and you've got something then at the end, and it's like the base is there. It's just like usually when you get into industry, things scale up with like there's more people, more money, more you need to make more of the things, or they're bigger, or whatever.
Yeah, I think personally that design teams are a really good intro for people looking into more mechanical engineering than anything. Like obviously there's steel bridge for civil engineering and stuff like that, but a lot of the design teams are very mechanical focused, like UBC Baja, like stuff like that. So I think that'd be a really good thing to look into if you're a student who's trying to consider mechanical engineering. After you started working full
Yeah,
time, like
absolutely. Like,
sorry, yeah, after you
sorry.
finished after you finished university and you started working full time, what's something that kind of surprised you or you weren't really expecting as you entered the industry?
That's a good question. I feel like something that I didn't really think of before, like going into industry, is like what kind of company. Like I thought of like what kind of job I wanted to like work, and like having done co-ops and stuff, I kind of used that information to kind of influence like where I was looking. But like I guess the other part of that that I hadn't considered is like phase of the what phase of life is the company in? Like, what are they, a startup? Are they like an established company? Are they scaling up? And I think it's like an important thing to consider too, because like you have different pros and cons to both. Like it's like Robotics, the company I'm at, we're kind of like a startup scaling up kind of phase. So the pros to that is like you get a ton of responsibility and you get to like really like work across a bunch of different disciplines, and like learn things like really fast. But like the negative is you don't have as much like process and stuff. So like you don't, not everything's not quite as like well defined as you might have in like an established company. So I guess it kind of comes down to like personal preference or like career goals, like which one you'd want to look at. I think it's something to like consider as you, I guess, like look towards career goals after university.
Yeah, I think it is a big thing that goes underlooked is trying to look at the company that you're getting, not just the industry you're going into, but the companies that are in the industry. And the size is, there's a huge difference between a big company and a small company. Because even through co-ops that I've been through and my friends have been through, big companies, you usually just focus on one very specific task, where at smaller companies, you get a lot more responsibility and you get a lot more time to kind of discover other parts of engineering that you might not get at a larger company. So pros and cons to that. One last question for you for today. What would you advise the students, maybe even in high school, first year university, who are considering or preparing for an engineering career? What would you say, like advice wise, that they should pursue?
I think kind of as we talked about, like I think design teams and like design challenges are a super good way to learn more about like engineering in general. It like not only does it kind of help you decide if you like it, it also like really helps getting your first like co-op or internship. Like companies look super favorably on people who take the initiative to go after those design teams and like really apply themselves. I also think that like a lot of engineering is like you learn something and then it's the application of science, right? So it's like you going out and doing those projects really helps cement the concepts and everything in your head. So it's definitely a super useful thing to do.
Okay, cool. Well, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today to chat with me and provide insight into what mechatronic engineering has been like for you. And I'm sure a lot of people are really going to take a lot of value from it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's been awesome.